there's a million things that I can do and stick to and be really motivated to do and get things done and determined. But then I just won't even, it won't even come into my head to do the thing that you're thinking about doing, if that makes sense.
Yes. Are you talking about tidying up? Because
Just
I'm with you
that kind of shit.
100%. Like
Or checking my mailbox. Ask me when, in fact, that's a good point.
No, that's bad.
I have never checked it in the last 3 years. I'm Wes Nelson. I'm a music artist and I've got ADHD.
That's great.
Yo,
You okay?
You are?
yes, you?
I'm good.
To Wes Nelson, you are recently diagnosed with ADHD 2 years ago.
Yeah, just shy of 2 years ago.
Right, so we've already spoken. I spoke to you recently on another show, and we spoke outside of that show about your experience with ADHD diagnosis and how it's affected you. So please begin by explaining to me why did you go for a diagnosis?
Yeah, so my missus, her brother has ADHD and my missus also. She was talking to me about how him getting medicated had changed his life.
Right.
Well, he felt it worked really well for him. So I was just like, I'm curious. I want to know if things could be better and why they could be better. So I did a load of research on the meds. And then I did a load of research surrounded ADHD in general. I think I've always known I've had it. I've spoken to doctors before and they said you should go and get a proper diagnosis, but it sounds like you've got ADHD as well, like whatever. So I always kind of knew it, but at the same time, there's almost a fear element. I didn't want to have it at the same time. So I didn't want to be labeled as ADHD. And
why?
I don't know. I just thought like, I don't really like taking medication.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really even take like paracetamol. I don't like anything. I just get on with stuff. So then I didn't like the idea of the meds and I didn't like the idea of being labeled as something just because I feel I'd play on it in my own head.
Right.
And make it worse or have something more to be anxious about. But then I spoke to this, her brother, and he was just like, yeah, it's been great. I've done this and that and the other. So then I did the diagnosis. They gave me a really low dose, but it was in my cupboard for ages and I didn't really know I didn't want to do it. I just left it there. And then I did it.
Fair.
And then I didn't know if it was making me feel better or I was actively trying to be better because I was taking it.
Placebo.
Yeah. But then when I stopped taking it, people was like, damn, have you stopped your meds? And I was like, what do you mean? It was like, yeah, because like it's so messy in here and this is, and I was
wow.
like,
That's the start of a tricky cycle.
I stopped taking them and for a while after I was sweet. Like I was still kept them habits. I think I built good habits whilst I was on it.
Yeah, great.
And then tried to carry them forward. And I think the second time around, it was like months and I didn't have to take anything. And I built them habits.
That's great.
Better, but then it went back again. But
so you had a period of being on the medication, you came off it, you felt you had integrated some things, which I've heard a I guess neuroscientist discuss this on YouTube, saying that there are obviously pros and cons to medication, as there is of any medication. You always pay a price for whatever. But one responsible way of approaching medication usage was pushing yourself or ourselves into doing things that we'd struggle with off medication and hoping that those neural pathways remain when we're off it. So you're medicating now?
No, not right now.
Okay. And how long was the last time you've been on medication?
2 months.
And why did you come off it?
I ran out.
and why didn't you get
Because
any more?
I ran out and I was just like, well, just give it a break for a minute. I don't know. Don't get me wrong. They're good and they're great and they keep doing things. But then at the same time, I feel like, why can't I just do this myself? But then sometimes it's nice to have the helping hand. So I'm trying to give it a go without right now.
It is. Listen, I empathize greatly with the complex journey around medication. I think I was on it a lot when I was younger. I had a couple of experiences that led me to coming off of it for a long time. And actually, the last time I picked up a prescription was maybe 2.5 years ago. And I kind of, whenever necessary, dipped into that last prescription similar to you, maybe a week, 2 weeks at a time. Some people have different beliefs on it. Some people have said that it's never going to work to its highest performance because you need to have it in your bloodstream for a particular amount of time. I found that because I'd come off it for so long, it was so strong when I went back on it. And then I've actually struggled to get I'm in the process of getting re-prescribed a lower dose because when I rang my GP and said, I'd really like a prescription, but I want one that's not as strong as the one that I'd had before, they said that I'd have to get assessed,
Assessed,
because it felt as though they were suggesting that I just like cured myself
cured
of ADHD, which I was like, I don't think that's how it
You're
works.
fixed now, bruv.
Which is weird because, you know, again, there's different pools of thought, but it's generally accepted that it's pretty much a neurological, I don't even want to say disorder because I think that does it a disservice, but it's a neurological quirk or whatever that you are born with, and then sometimes it actualizes, sometimes it doesn't. That's what I believe. But if it's in my brain, an underfiring of neurons to the executive functioning part of the brain is what they say, pow, 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 then no, I've just gone for 2 years and I've managed to outdo myself, I think, and I just now and again I just want someone to hold my hand. Before I used to have a complex, you know, I used to have a complex that I couldn't do things unless I was on it, or I needed to be on the medication in order to complete projects. But I just finished writing a book.
Gang.
Come on. And I was only on it for like 10% of the process.
Mad.
So now I have that in my mind and I know that I'm capable regardless.
Yeah.
The only difference is some things might feel a little bit easier.
It's strange, isn't it? Because outside looking in, I feel like sometimes people judge you on it thinking, oh, but why don't you just do it? But it's so hard, isn't it hard to explain? Like,
yeah. But this is the point.
But it's not it's not being lazy. It's not like, because there's a million things that I can do and stick to and be really motivated to do and get things done and determined. But then I just it won't even come into my head to do the thing that you're thinking about doing, if that makes sense.
Yes. Are you talking about tidying up? Because
just
I'm with you.
That kind of
100%.
shit.
Like
or checking my mailbox. Ask me when. In fact, that's a good point.
No, that's bad.
I have never checked it in the last 3 years.
I want to go back to something you said earlier. Yeah. I'm intrigued by the resistance you had to the concept of ADHD, because for full transparency, you know, like we've created this show as a small team with a passion to understand ADHD, and we found it interesting that Black men seem to be more resistant to the idea of having ADHD than the other people we'd spoken to. Is that something you've experienced in your life?
No, I knew I had it.
Yeah, but with the resistance to it, where does that resistance come from? Because I know a bunch of people who've had ADHD, and I also think I know a bunch of Black men who have ADHD.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to be as prevalent within that community to be like, yes, and then approach life through that lens. It's more like what you said initially, which is just gonna get on with it.
I think in the culture, maybe people are more inclined to try natural remedies to things as well.
Interesting. That's really interesting. So it's just the acceptance of even like perhaps like a Western diagnosis.
Yeah, I think that is. I think that's. Would you agree? In the culture, I feel like there's less medication, less people try. Oh, pop of this, pop for that, pop of that for that. There's less drugs going around in that sense. I think it's people like more natural remedies. Like there's a herbal tea for this, and there's a blah 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 for that,
which is legit.
Which is like sea moss will cure everything apparently.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it wasn't necessarily that. It was just the fact that in my head, I didn't know if it was going to make me worse. Knowing that I had it.
See, I find that so wild. Surely
because then if I know, then what's going to change? I'll just know. Do you know what I mean? But I already knew. Or did I? So then I had to find out.
What was the flip between, you know, being resistant to the concept of ADHD and now being totally open to discussing it? And
I think it was private at first. For me, it was like I found it out and whatever, and then I dealt with it accordingly within myself. I told the missus, told parents and whatever. But then I think me before the diagnosis would have wanted someone to listen to, talk about it to, if that makes sense. So me talking about it now, I would have loved to have heard me before I got diagnosed.
Yeah.
To understand it.
Yeah.
To then go and see, oh, what can be done about this? What can be done about that? And I think it's difficult because there's so much misinformation, especially on like TikTok and Instagram. They put like 5 bullet points that everyone has. And then everyone's like, oh, I've got ADHD. I was just like, I want to be that guy. That's why I was thinking that was a bit of a fear. So then hearing someone who's genuinely got it and been diagnosed, I think that would have been nicer that way than just some random geezer on TikTok who has no connections to ADHD and you're reading out, freaking yourself out and this, that, and the other. I think listening to someone who's maybe gone through what you've gone through is always refreshing, right?
Yeah. Now you've accepted it fully, and you've even engaged with medication. Looking back, do you think it's a shame that you didn't look for it when you were younger?
I don't have any regrets, I don't think.
Okay.
I think it's affected me a lot differently then than it does now.
Yeah.
I was a lot more hyperactive then, but visually hyperactive. I think not necessarily so mentally hyperactive where I'd be overthinking this and overstimulated in that sense.
Right.
Or I'd be able to deal with it in a different way, like I'd be running around or doing this or doing that. But then now I'm in my house or in the studio all the time.
Mm.
And then
You're right. You're finding healthier outlets and channels for
Yeah.
what you consider to be the more difficult sides of ADHD.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Have you ever battled with bouts of anxiety
This
or
is where I was
depression?
going to go. Yeah.
Okay.
But then, so I never experienced that before. So I think the ways I'm channeling it now in my music and in this, that, and the other is great. But it also leaves a lot of room for thoughts. And then I overthink a lot more things. Also, when with like music as well, when you've got a deadline for this and this coming in, and it's an art, and there's I don't know, there's a lot of stuff that's happening all at once, and things that need to be done on time. I hate that, especially when it's like an art. But then that's triggered my anxiety, and I think maintaining relationships with people, that as I've got older, I've got probably worse at that. Like even just
Okay.
friends.
Okay.
Like texting, I don't really like going on my phone.
Okay.
But I could be having really intense friendship for a week or two, and then I'll go missing for a year, for like months.
And you think this is an ADHD related thing? That's interesting.
I've heard this from a lot of people with it.
Go on.
That it's difficult to maintain relationships and it can be intense. But this isn't to say that I don't care about people, because I really care about these people. But then I will not think of them. Does that sound cold?
No, it's called object permanence.
What does that mean?
It's struggling to engage with something that isn't readily in front of you.
Something that's not there. I don't even think of like my diary or with a person. Like I just will not. It won't even come into my brain. But I love them people so much.
Yeah.
And when I see them, we'll have the greatest time.
I hear that.
Or if I see something and I'm reminded of them, I'll go, oh, let's talk to you. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But my friends kind of know that now. Like they know I'll just go missing for a couple of weeks and then I'll be back.
Great.
Which is good.
I mean, look, all these things have a root. My therapist would argue that severe anxiety or anxiety as conceptually is actually in what she calls an inhibitory emotion. So it's our body protecting us from feeling something deeper because we haven't yet built a true connection between us and those emotions.
And adjust them.
This is just one particular form of therapy, which I found really helpful.
Nice.
So they only within this therapy, it's called AEDP. Accelerated Experiential Dynamic Psychotherapy.
Jesus Christ.
And there's like 6 recognized core emotions.
Yeah.
They think, and I believe, if we identify as emotions, we connect to them and we begin processing them. But if we're unused to connecting with them, for boys, it's very common that sadness is something that we disconnect from very early. And so because we don't know how to just feel sadness, our body will do other things to get in the way, which is anxiety, depression. And then those things lead to defenses. So, oh my God, I feel anxious. What am I going to do? Smoke cigarettes.
Drink.
What am I going to do?
Stuff.
Drink. Right.
Cool.
Wild, right?
Very
It's
nice.
called the change triangle. I mean, I know, again, like something that I spent a lot of time reading about because I was so fascinated with it in myself.
Yeah, it's
and I
fascinating.
mention this because when I remember when I went into therapy for the first time, my therapist straight away put a clear differentiation between ADHD and anxiety. Because I used to say, oh, that's just my ADHD. And she'd be like, no, you're anxious about what we're talking about. Interesting. 2 separate things. But they can get.
I feel like I'm you.
They can overlap. They can overlap
before.
because they sometimes come up in the same way.
Interesting.
It is interesting, right? What is your favorite thing about ADHD? Like, is there any part of it where you're like, this is because from my knowledge of you is did football? No.
Yeah, when I was younger, yeah.
Football, you were smashing it.
Kickboxing.
Didn't you do like make rockets or something?
Nuclear systems design engineer.
Nuclear what?
System design engineer. I love being obsessed with things, like new things all the time.
Hyperfocus.
Golf right now.
Oh, that's the worst one you could have said. When you didn't have golf as a child, I'm assuming you didn't play golf as a child.
No.
Were there any coping mechanisms that you had?
I think I'd try and just play every sport under the sun. Every single sport I wanted that was possible to do, I want to learn it. Or I'd go out skateboarding, or I'd learn.
Yeah.
I just constantly want to learn things, or I'd be making some stuff.
What an era.
I just enjoyed doing everything.
Yeah.
Like everything that
anything
I could.
you could do, you'd do it.
Yeah, anything that I could put my brain to and like do.
Did you used to hyperfocus as a kid?
Yeah, but it would usually be on one thing for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
But intense.
Right. And then you just drop it.
Then I'd find something else new that was more interesting. The one thing that's remained constant though is music.
Cool.
Which I can always focus on.
When with these behavioral patterns or this picking up things, dropping it, like hyperfocus, not focusing, distraction, were your parents ever interested in there being a
They had no idea what that is.
neurodiverse? No, nothing.
Not a clue. Even when I explained it to my old man after I got the diagnosis, he's wrapping his... No, when I told him it all about everything, and then I gave him the doctor's number and email and whatever, and then they spoke about it as well. And then he came back and chatted to me. He was just like, well, it all makes sense, doesn't it? Like everything.
Oh, he said that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
like,
cool.
He's like, it really, now it all makes... Like my mum and dad, they were like, well, we knew something.
So 2 years since the diagnosis, you're happy?
Yeah.
That you've had that, right? And in terms of anxiety, depression, going to work, coming to this interview, this is obviously specifically around ADHD. How do you experience yourself now? Do you...
I think I'm just more self-aware of things. I work my way around things that I know are going to become a problem.
What's striking me about this interview, Wes, is that you seem to have a reasonably high level of acceptance of these behaviors, which is great. If true, that's great, because I find that, well, for me personally, I attach a lot of guilt, sometimes shame, to the way I act or feeling in discordance with the expectations of society, like wanting to desperately fit into these methods of maintaining friendships, working to in a set way, preparing myself for things, planning ahead. It stresses me out that I find that so difficult, and I have to take special actions to give myself a better shot. But am I wrong in thinking that you seem to accept that side of yourself?
Yeah, I think I do accept it, and it's not out of a laziness things. Like I do try, and especially when it's inconveniencing other people. Like I can't just be late for this because that's not fair on everyone else. So
okay,
if it's gonna upset other people or it's gonna throw the workful off or anything,
it's your responsibility.
It's my responsibility. It's my responsibility
100%.
to
always
suck it up because you just get it done.
Yeah. So let's say one of your fans is a young person and they are hearing some of the situations we've described and they're struggling. Yeah. What would your advice to them be? Would you suggest a diagnosis?
I refrained from almost understanding too much about maybe ADHD and whatever. I wouldn't advise that. Talk to people who are diagnosed, because you'll find so much common ground. Even like with my missus now, I found so much common ground that I just never even knew was a thing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And don't get me wrong, I guess everyone has common ground with the missus. They're supposed to. But especially with someone, missus aside, just another person with ADHD, it's really cool to talk to someone and understand behaviors and how they might be able to get around it. And they say, oh, well, I do this. And then this helps me in this way. And I can remember to do
techniques.
That. And there's, like you've said things today, I'm just like, wow, cool.
Yeah, I've researched it a lot, man. I find it fascinating.
And it's understanding more about something that you might see as a negative, but it's understanding you. So it's important to find as much out about it as possible, I think. And addressing it accordingly. I'm not saying go get medicated. I'm not saying don't get medicated. I'm just saying explore all your options.
Yeah.
But you're perfectly imperfect, I think.
This is true. Thanks, Wes. Love, brother. Good to chat to you.